Hi, my name's Nicole Lewis. I'm the Director of Quality and Compliance, and today I'll be giving you an introduction to person-centered practices. What are person-centered practices? The first part of person-centered practices is person-centered. So what does that mean? Person-centered means treating individuals with dignity and respect, building on their strengths and talents, helping people connect to their community and develop relationships, listening and acting on what the individual communicates, taking time to know and understand individuals and the things that make them unique. So what are person-centered practices? I have a video here that will explain it a little bit better than I can. It's about 6 minutes long, and we're going to start it now.
We live in a society made up of systems that sometimes brush aside the critical importance of the individual. Implementing a person-centered culture and approach is an effective way to balance the power of the individual with the power of systems. By putting the individual at the center of the conversation and removing the assumption that we already know what's important to them brings about new awareness and possibility. Person-centered practices are simple tools that work to help people clarify what's important and to help them develop a simple plan they can implement. Every person is unique, and the service system must be able to respond flexibly to each person's situation, strengths, needs, and preferences. In doing so, our aim is to ensure the service system is driven by the very people it supports. Person-centered practices were originally born out of a necessity to listen to people, acknowledge their truth, and assist them to take action. In order to more fully understand another person's experience, a good place to start is to explore the questions as they apply to your own life. In the spirit of empathy, spend some time in your own inquiry by simply asking the questions we've laid out in this video before helping others. It will give you a well-informed perspective of what it feels like to be asked these questions. Focus on the elements you think would be helpful to the person, tailoring your questions and approach to the conversation. We open with seeking to understand your current state. This is the best place to start. Ask open-ended questions and follow-up responses by repeating what is being said to fully understand what is being communicated. This will be beneficial for you and the person, as it will stimulate deeper reflection. Seeking to understand someone is more about building trust than finding solutions. The solutions will come from the conversation. A simple opening question could be, how can I help you? The second element is envisioning the future. Picturing your future and what you want it to look like is critical to bring it into reality. Take several moments to thoughtfully consider the big picture. This will make it easier to understand what steps need to be taken to get the result you seek. Here are some questions to consider. What do you envision for your future? Don't limit yourself and think big. What does success look like? Understanding strengths and leveraging your abilities and capacities is element 3. Once you have established trust, it's easier to get people to realize what tools they already have to solve their problem. Helping them list and acknowledge those resources can allay fears and give them confidence. You may want to ask, what strengths, abilities, and gifts do you bring to the situation? Element 4 is exploring challenges and barriers. This step has a way of giving your path greater clarity by helping you do some honest reality testing about what is possible. It also gives you strength by providing insight into what types of actions you can take to overcome challenges. Living your dreams and overcoming challenges equals perseverance and resilience. Consider what we just discussed and ask, what barriers are keeping you from implementing your future? Element 5 is tending the future. Your life will be difficult to direct if you are not intentionally finding ways to care for yourself along the journey. Acquire a new skill, join an activity or support group, establish daily routines for health and wellness. Your future will not be yours without actively reaching for it. Here are some questions for discussion. How do you define success? What actions, behaviors, or beliefs can you adopt that will make your future a success? Asking for help is element 6. You don't have to do it alone. In fact, you shouldn't. Seek out the support of others through family, friends, or service professionals. People want to help. Be clear about what you are requesting. Keep it simple. Often people are honored when asked to do so. Give them the opportunity to help. You won't regret it. Take an inventory of your relationships and ask, who is on my team and how can they help me to implement my plan? Our 7th and final element is stepping into the future. Taking action on what we want in life is the only way to fully realize that life. But you don't have to do it all at once. Take small steps that connect directly with your future. Seek the help of others. Don't give up, even when it becomes difficult. That is part of the reward of making your own life, the one you truly want. In preparing to take the first step, ask, if my success was assured, what bold steps would I take? The future is yours for the taking. What are you waiting for?
That explains a little bit about person-centered practices for us. So person-centered thinking, what is that? It involves a deep respect for individuals and their equality. And we have a video. This is Christopher explaining person-centered thinking in his own words.
I started receiving services when I was 18 years old. The old group home that I was at, they didn't have an idea of independence. They thought I was too stressful of a case to give independence to. My new agency's approach, what is more client-driven. They wanted to make sure that we evolved into who we were meant to be, not some little cookie dough cutouts. Sit down, actually listen to the clients, listen to what's going on, try to understand why they're feeling the way they are.
Okay. So that was Christopher explaining a little bit about person-centered thinking and how it made him feel. Person-centered planning. This involves a process and approach for determining, planning for, and working towards what an individual with a disability or an older adult wants for his or her future. And we have a video that'll explain it a little bit more. This is about a minute and a half. I'll play it.
It's just fun. It's finding out what people really want and then getting really creative on figuring out how to get it for that person. Now, it's not going to happen overnight, and it's not going to happen for everything that people want, but that doesn't happen for me in my life either, but that's okay, right? So yeah, I don't think it's that much work. At the end of the plan, when you actually write people's names next to stuff, they really, especially folks I've noticed that aren't really in the field, maybe it's a support person, a boyfriend's mom or the neighbor or someone who's been invited along the way that isn't in the world, they really love being able to help out. And so if you actually have it written down, what it is and who that person, who's going to do it, that definitely helps. Then having someone along the way just reminding folks, have you checked into this yet? How can I help? And then meeting again. Or it can be just a phone call, it can be just coffee, it can be pretty casual, but just keeping people on track with their little task. That's why having a person-centered plan is helpful, because that plan includes a bunch of people, hopefully, and we all kind of take a task on. So it's not put on one person. It's put on the whole team. And if I only have a few things I'm working on, I can manage that. And checking in with the person throughout the year, just because I'm not meeting doesn't mean I'm not checking in, or checking in with another team member as far as how are things going with, for example, a job. Somebody's looking for a new job. That may not be my responsibility, but it may be I'm the person authorizing the services and helping pick the provider and that kind of thing. So yeah, it can be difficult. I'm not seeing someone face to face, but we're doing that work all the time.
Right, that was person-centered planning. So person-centered versus system-centered. In a system-centered service, decision-making is driven by staff and professionals, while in a person-centered service, decision-making is driven by the individual and his or her support network. In a system-centered service, planning occurs as a singular event according to a prescribed format. In a person-centered service, planning is ongoing and individualized. In a system-centered service, planning, the person's goals are defined within the context of the program, while when it's person-centered, the person's goals are defined within the context of a holistic plan. Staffing in a system-centered service is provided at preset times according to a fixed schedule. However, in a person-centered service, staffing is provided with flexibility. In a system-centered service, staff take the place of natural supports. However, in a person-centered service, staff augment natural supports. We're finding those natural supports for those individuals. As far as activities in a system-centered service, there is a preset schedule of activities that people take part in or don't. In a person-centered service, individuals develop their own personal schedule based on their goals. System-centered services focus on participation, while person-centered services focus on increased independence. System-centered services also focus on group needs, while person-centered services focus on individual needs. Staffing in system-centered services, staff skills determine the selection of activities, while in person-centered services, preferred activities inform the selection of staff with appropriate skills. So in system-centered, staff skills kind of set up the goals, while in person-centered, we're looking for the staff that can help that individual meet the goals that they want to meet. And in system-centered services, support is tied to the program. The person can't take their support with them if they leave the program. While person-centered services are portable. The person can take their support and change service provider if they so choose. So Virginia's principles of person-centered practices are next. Principle 1 is listening. Individual choices and descriptions of a good life are respected and followed. So how is this accomplished? And we're going to use the individual's own words. You can learn about the things that are important to me and my choices by getting to know me, by listening, even when I'm not really speaking through my actions, and by making different questions of me and of others who know or care about me. My story and my experiences are seen as important and are used to help develop my plan. People who are involved in my support take time to share and learn about my history. I have what I need to fully take part in planning my own supports, including any assistive technology I need. I am able to share my needs and choices in a way with which I'm most comfortable and that are understood by others. And my plan for a good life for me is based on what's important to me, on my choices, and on my hopes and dreams. Principle 2 is community. Relationships with families, friends, and people in the community are very important and at the center of planning. How is this accomplished? In the own words of an individual. I am supported in staying connected to my family, friends, and community. I am supported in making new connections and friends. I receive supports to meet others with confidence and dignity. As I make new friends and connections, I have more people who are about me and who can support me in my life. Principle 3, self-direction. Personal choice and control are supported. How is this accomplished? And we'll use the individual's own words again. My rights, responsibilities, and dignity are recognized and protected at all times. I am in charge of and responsible for my future, services, resources, and the help I need. No matter how I communicate, I have support I need to have the control I want over my life, services, and resources. I have the right to change my plan at any time. I have choices about all of my supports, both the ones paid for and those that come from family, friends, and other people I know. I have the right to take risks, even when others don't agree with my choices. Principle 4 is talents and gifts. The experience, talents, and contributions of individuals, families, and communities are strengthened and supported. How do we accomplish this in the individual's own words? Information that I need is easy to get and easy for me to understand. I have opportunities to learn new things in ways that work for me. The people who support me have the skills needed to do the job. They want the best for me, and they encourage me to be my best self. I am important as a person, and I am able to contribute to my family and community. The things that I spend time doing and the changes in me for the better are based on my gifts, talents, and abilities. New and better ideas about how to support me and skill to do the job are well rewarded. Principle 5 is responsibility. There is shared responsibility for supports and choices. How is this accomplished in the individual's own words? Things that are written in my plan happen in my life. Support is available when my family, friends, and I need it. I am supported in taking responsibility for my choices and the things that I do. The people who support me understand my right to take risks and to learn from my choices and bad choices. My good choices and bad choices. I understand my responsibility to try to make choices that keep me healthy and safe. Together, we try to balance my right to take risks with my health and safety. Next part of person-centered planning is people first language. So what is person first? We have a few videos that will explain it better. The first one is what is person first?
What is person-first language? Person-first language puts the person ahead of any disability identifier, meaning a person who has autism or a person with an intellectual disability. Why is this important? A person with a disability is a person first. People with disabilities do not want to be seen first and foremost by their disability. It devalues their inherent uniqueness and personhood. Additionally, a person who uses an assistive device is not bound by it. A person who uses a wheelchair, for example, is much freer to move around this world because of their chair. This stems from the social model of disability. A person is disabled by lack of access to their community and environment, not their impairment. Another common model is the medical model, which typically sees the person from a diagnostic point of view. Another common model is the charity model. This posits interventions or policies are done in the best interests of the person with a disability without including them or their experiences in the decision-making process. Also, using terms such as special, mentally retarded, handicapped, are disrespectful and possibly hurtful. Always ask the person how they choose to identify, but default to person-first language if you don't know.
So that explains person-first language. Next video is about words. Words count. People-first language explained a little deeper.
Words are powerful. They define who we are. If I call you smart, how does it make you feel? What if I call you stupid? Stupid! Does that make you feel stupid? Mature people don't call each other names. I don't call you stupid, and you don't call me stupid. Except for when you are disabled. And disabled is the only name you are called.
People don't label each other. You're just Jim, or Mary, or Sam, except if you are disabled.
When you have a disability, that's how people describe you. You're no longer super tall, or handsome, or smart. You are just disabled. The Down syndrome label prevents me from becoming who I want to be. Once you are labeled, doors close.
When people describe themselves, they don't use labels. They don't call themselves autistic, impulsive, or retarded. They describe themselves in terms of qualities, not labels.
Funny, kind, courteous,
Handsome, good looking, and best hair.
friendly, athletic, happy.
Talented. I'm a hard worker. And I keep busy.
Nice, smart, and cute.
Funny, very outgoing, very sporty.
When people describe themselves in labels disappear.
The Down syndrome label allows people to make judgments about me without having to get to know me.
Don't call me dumb. I'm a hard worker, which makes me successful.
I'm proud to be different. When people see I can play basketball, then they realize I'm just like everybody else.
People First Language is a movement that wants to solve this problem. It asks you to get into the habit of describing the person before their disability.
Don't call me Down syndrome. Call me a person with Down syndrome. Or just Connor.
By putting the person first, you are defining him or her as a human being, not as a medical diagnosis. Another thing to do is to describe people not in terms of their problems, but their needs.
Don't call me a MCP. State my needs. I use a wheelchair.
The two sentences make the same point, but one is positive and useful, and the other brings up negative feelings of inadequacy and pity. Words count. Use them carefully.
I also have another video here of why Person First Language can save a life. This one's a little long, but I promise it's good.
Junkie, burnout, crackhead, alkie, drunk. This is how our society describes people struggling with addiction to drugs or alcohol. At best, it's, she's an alcoholic, or he is an addict. Imagine if we use this type of language with other diseases. She's a cancer. Ooh, he is a dementia. That boy is anxiety. But we don't. We say she has breast cancer, or he is in the early stages of Alzheimer's disease, and the boy is struggling with anxiety. We don't even do this with addiction to other substances. Have you ever referred to someone who smokes cigarettes as a cigarette addict? Yet in 1987, the medical community formally reclassified addiction as a disease, just the same as cancer, Alzheimer's, and anxiety disorder, to name a few. But our language has not kept pace with that, and it matters. Let me tell you about a woman I know named Jane. She's an upper middle class professional who has a master's degree and she's a parent-teacher organization board member. Jane also has the genetic predisposition for addiction, and she battled codependency and low self-esteem her entire life. And on her 39th birthday, Jane found herself homeless, having lost her driver's license, and most painfully, her children. Jane was 100% physically isolated. Now, let me tell you a little bit about me. I'm a mom, a daughter, a friend, and a wife. I'm an MBA graduate, a marketing executive, and I volunteer in the recovery community. I'm a runner, an ex-Jersey girl. Oh, and I am someone who really loves pretzels. I am about 150 different things to myself and to everyone in my life. And yes, as maybe you've guessed it, I am Jane. And at one time, as so many people reminded me, I believed that I was only an alcoholic. I have been sober and in long-term recovery or remission for coming on 10 years. But the feelings of those last desperate days, the days that I was almost at a point of no return, continued to teach me. My move into recovery wasn't neat. It was not pretty. I simply realized one day that I was literally at the point of dying, and I was not willing to leave that legacy for my sons. But not dying is not the same as feeling worthy to live. Negative labels like, she's a drunk, Rebecca is an alcoholic, made it very difficult. The shame of those negative labels had pushed me into emotional isolation long before my physical isolation. See, to get well, I had to treat my disease, not be my disease. I had to believe that I was more than just an alcoholic. Now, I had never believed that before in all my attempts to get sober. But I will never forget the moment in detox when someone said to me, Rebecca, you have a disease. You have alcoholism. It's not all of you. You just need to remember all the other pieces of you. In that moment of kindness and of clarity and of language shift, I was no longer just a negative stereotype. I was, in fact, a person, a woman, a daughter, a mom, and yes, someone who needed to take accountability for her actions and her disease. But being freed of a single negative label gave me hope, and that fueled my recovery. That language shift was part of saving my life. Words matter because they shape how we see an issue, how we see each other, how we see ourselves. They open or they close possibilities. We know this now when it comes to race, gender identity, and disability. But there needs to be a greater understanding about how words affect those struggling with addiction to drugs and alcohol. These so-called junkies and drunks, they're also moms and dads. They're sons of bankers and daughters of union workers. They're high school athletes, straight-A students, and dropouts. They're teachers and doctors, laborers and cops, Caucasians, African Americans, Asians, and every race within our borders. In other words, they're people just like you. But we don't talk about them like that. Instead, we reduce their identity to one negative label that suggests moral failing. We stigmatize them. The Office of National Drug Control Policy recognized this. In early 2017, it published a paper called Changing the Language Around Addiction, which reported that people with the disease of addiction are viewed more negatively than people with any other physical or psychiatric condition. And negative labels encourage blame. As the report makes clear, when someone is referred to as a substance abuser or an addict, even physicians and those highly trained in addiction treatment are more likely to blame the person with the disease. And worst of all, these negative labels are contributing to our epidemic of addiction by discouraging people from seeking help. The Hazelden Foundation confirms this. It reports that due to the fear of being stigmatized, only 1 in 10 Americans struggling with addiction to drugs or alcohol receive professional care. Let me repeat that. Only 1/10 opt for care due to fear of stigma. Language matters. Now, recognizing this, some media outlets like the Associated Press and some treatment centers did begin to shift their language. But more of us need to join the effort. Shifting the language we use around addiction is a simple but powerful way to support recovery. Instead of reductive or judgmental labels like junkie and drunk, or even alcoholic or addict, we could say, Dad has an opioid use disorder. John uses cocaine. Susan is struggling with addiction to alcohol. Neutral phrases that use verbs to separate the human being from the disease. Phrases that describe the problem without labeling the person. Imagine your whole identity reduced to one negative label. Someone freeing me from my negative label was an important, critical part of saving my life. So the next time you see someone struggling with addiction, please refer to the disease without labeling the person. It could help save their life. Thank you.
So yes, words do matter. Some examples of people first language: instead of saying the handicapped or disabled, say people with disabilities. Instead of saying she's wheelchair bound, say Nora uses a wheelchair. Instead of she's a midget, say Mary is short of stature. Additional examples of people first language. We've already hit the first one, people with disabilities instead of the handicapped or disabled. Paul has a cognitive disability, or you could say his diagnosis, instead of he's mentally retarded. Kate has autism instead of she's autistic. Ryan has Down syndrome instead of he's Downs, a Downs person, mongoloid. Sarah has a learning disability instead of she's learning disabled. Bob has a physical disability instead of he's a quadriplegic or he's crippled. Accessible parking, accessible hotel room instead of handicapped parking, handicapped hotel room. Tom has a mental health condition instead of he's emotionally disturbed or he's mentally ill. Steve receives special ed services instead of he's in special ed. Children without disabilities instead of normal, healthy, or typical kids. So why? Why do we do person-centered practices? It started in 1999 with the Olmstead Act. Please look into it. And it's blossomed from there. Now, looking at 21, 22 years later, we still don't have it perfected. But we do have Larry's story, and Larry's story will explain the reason why we do person-centered practices.
I lived in 2 institutions and 2 group homes, and I didn't have those choices then, but I have those choices now.
I heard a lot of stories about Larry. They said he was angry, he would lash out at people, staff and stuff. And then I took the time and I really found out about Larry.
When I lived in a group home, I was there for 18 years in one and then 3 in another. So I've had like 21 years in both places. And, you know, they weren't no fun. And plus, it was 11 others and myself. It was terrible with 11 other people.
I mean, there's 12 people there. It's crazy. It's chaotic. I mean, it's never quiet. You can't sit in the living room and watch TV because there's 11 other people that are running around. They're having behaviors. They're having conflicts with staff. They're lining up to get meds in front of your television show. So it's nuts. You're told when to do everything. Yeah, when people told me that Larry was angry, I said, gee, I wonder why. He never got to go anywhere. He sat in a room that was 8 by 8, and you only let him make 15-minute phone calls. He had no contact with the outside world. So I would be pretty darn angry, too. And that was the biggest thing with Larry, is that no one believed in him. He was told he couldn't have his own apartment. He was told that he couldn't read. I mean, there were so many things that, he couldn't have a normal job. There was just a million things they told Larry he couldn't do.
I feel that some of the issues that come with transforming the system is that people have to think differently and be able to take a little bit of risk. Larry is a guy that who needs physical assistance with a lot of his daily supports, but he doesn't need staffing all the time. But when he needs it, he needs it. So what we're planning to do is do something where he will have a person who will live next door to him, that we will give them free rent, and they'll live there with their family.
And they'll just be there if Larry needs help. And then we will have staff on during the day to help Larry get out in the community and make some of his dreams happen. When I see people living in a more less traditional model where they're able to live with less people, is the biggest thing is being able to go out into the community when they want. They don't have to plan it out. They don't have to worry about when the staff is coming and where they're going. They can make a decision without planning ahead. And I think that that's, for them, one of the biggest things that is to their advantage. And where they go, whether they want to even come home at night or they want to go to a friend's house, who they can have over to their home, and who they want to have over for dinner. Just all those little decisions that we take for granted.
I like it because I can go to bed anytime I want to. I don't have a set schedule when I eat. I eat anytime I want.
I usually hang out with him, make him a cup of coffee first thing when I get in, and he's big on his computer, so it's always, hey, can you help me with my computer? We'll do this, that, and the other thing. And then usually he likes to have his breakfast around 11, so he loves eggs, sunny side up every time. He took me into, it was a jewelry store the other day, somewhere I would never expect him to go, but he knew everybody that was working there. And then finally he told me to shoo so he could do his own thing. He really likes to be on his own when he's out at the mall because he just gets around and talks to people that he knows and feels like he can be himself more than when he has a staff right there at his side all the time. I've learned that regardless of what situation he could be in, he's got a lot of physical challenges that he has to overcome from day to day, but you wouldn't know it. He does not let that stop him.
I mean, he's a much different person today. If you knew him 5 or 6 years ago, he's definitely, he's a bunch of fun. He really is.
And that's what person-centered planning is all about. Larry's situation probably was a little bit more unique than some of the situations that we have for our individuals. He was able to do a lot on his own and live on his own. Some of our individuals are not able to do that. So we have to look at ways that we can help them meet their dreams, meet their goals, and be more person-centered. Thank you for taking the time to listen to my information on person-centered practices. Have a very lovely day. Thank you.